Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really powerful, honestly just deeply moving memoir by Scott Monroe. It's called The Long Way Home. And look, this isn't just your standard biography. It's this raw, unflinching look at what happens when someone spends 50 years, half a century, trying to outrun their own childhood trauma. It's all about the profound journey it takes to finally stop, turn around, and just find peace. Whether you've navigated trauma yourself, or you're simply trying to understand the kind of invisible weights that people carry around every single day, this story is absolutely going to shift how you think about healing.
So how often do we mask our avoidance as ambition? Just listen to this. I thought I was running towards something. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't running towards anything. I was running away. That painful realization is really the core of Scott's entire journey. For decades, he chased new locations, new jobs, new relationships. He genuinely thought he was moving toward a better life, a fresh start, where the past just couldn't catch up to him. But the hard truth he had to face, he wasn't running toward a destination at all. He was running away. Away from memories, away from pain, and away from parts of himself he just didn't want to look at. It's wild to think about how we can spend literally decades actively avoiding the very pain we need to face in order to actually be free.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the art of hiding.
To understand how someone manages to run for 50 years, we really have to go back to the beginning. We need to look at how Scott essentially mastered the art of hiding his true reality from the world, starting when he was just a little kid. It's a classic example of the iceberg technique. To the outside world, this guy was always smiling, joking with his mates, working incredibly hard as a tough stonemason, and even working the doors at pubs. But the inside, the part under the water, entirely different story. We're talking about a man who would literally cry himself to sleep, carrying this massive unresolved childhood fear, and hiding his bruises, both figuratively and literally. He learned how to tell people he was totally fine when deep down, he was drowning. That brave face was a total masterclass in survival, but it ended up trapping a terrified little boy inside. Now, those internal wounds, they definitely didn't come from nowhere. His early years were defined by just pure, sheer survival. He grew up in a broken home without a father, enduring a highly abusive alcoholic mother. Scott describes how, as a really young boy, he had to learn how to become invisible. He'd read the subtle changes in his mother's voice, anticipate the anger, and just completely disappear. And the horrific moments, he kept them entirely to himself. Like this one time hiding in a dark downstairs shower just trying to avoid confrontation, only to have the curtain ripped back and face a severe beating with a belt. He told absolutely no one. He just buried that terror and built up that protective facade we were just talking about, a facade that would stay welded to him for the next 50 years. Moving on to section 2. Glimpses of safe havens. But, here's the really incredible thing about the human spirit. Even amidst all that terrifying chaos, Scott managed to find these temporary little pockets of light and safety. They were his lifelines. His grandparents' home was this absolute sanctuary. He talks about it smelling of Sunday roasts and Saturday night pancakes, a place where there was actually always enough food and enough love. His grandfather was a quiet former boxer who ran a little green butcher shop, and he taught Scott what a good man looked like without ever even raising his voice. Then there was Stockton Beach, wild waves, sand dunes, surfing, fishing, total freedom from the nightmare back home. Add in some large, beautifully chaotic gatherings with his extended family, and you get these sensory anchors. They gave him crucial, undeniable glimpses of what love and safety actually felt like, and that is what gave him the resilience to survive. Sometimes it feels safer to laugh than to let people see that you're hurt. This survival mechanism was born out of just pure heartbreak. When Scott was a teenager, his extended family all camped out in the backyard for Christmas. Christmas morning rolls around, all the kids grab their Santa sacks. Every single child's sack was bursting with presents, except for Scott's. His was completely empty. And as the other kids started teasing him, saying he must be on the naughty list, Scott didn't cry. He didn't yell. He literally laughed right along with them. At a very young age, he realized that masking your devastation with humor is often the only way to protect yourself from feeling even more vulnerable. Which brings us to section 3, when the foundation cracks. See, when you construct your entire life on top of unhealed wounds, eventually that foundation is going to buckle. It's just a matter of time. For a long while, though, it really seemed like Scott had won. On paper, he had achieved the absolute dream. He found a wife he loved, they had a beautiful daughter who became his little shadow, they bought a house on the Gold Coast, and he had a solid, stable job as a stonemason. From the outside looking in, he had totally escaped his chaotic past. But as we all know, unhealed trauma is incredibly patient. You can build a gorgeous house, but if the soil underneath it is shifting, the walls are going to crack. And this is exactly what happened. It was a rapid succession of compounding grief that just shattered that foundation. It started with a frantic 25-minute drive to the hospital to say goodbye to his grandmother, the woman who was his ultimate childhood protector. Her passing left a massive void. Over the following years, his marriage and family life slowly began to dissolve. Fast forward a bit, and he loses his loyal dog and absolute best friend of 16 years, Teak. The silence in his house suddenly became deafening. And then, right as he's trying to process all of this loss, boom, a terrifying cancer diagnosis. This compounded grief acted like a sledgehammer, forcing decades of buried childhood trauma violently back to the surface.
Okay, section 4, running out of track.
With his world fractured and his carefully constructed life entirely in pieces, Scott did the only thing he knew how to do. He leaned on the one coping mechanism he had mastered. He ran. He traveled to the absolute extremes of the continent to outrun his own mind. He took a job in a remote mining town in far north Queensland, literally 12 hours from the nearest city. He threw himself into extreme, high adrenaline work. We're talking marine salvage on the Great Barrier Reef, flying into flooded zones in helicopters, grueling hours. By day, he was the tough, joking worker everybody loved. But by night, the silence came back. He would lie awake, miles away from his family, weeping in total isolation. He proved that you can travel to the most remote corners of the earth, but physical distance just cannot cure internal pain. Still desperate to escape that silence, he packed up everything and moved to a village in Thailand. But guess what? The darkness followed him right across the ocean. Dealing with the lingering fear of cancer, watching his savings completely vanish as a small convenience store failed, and feeling a brand new relationship starting to fracture, Scott hit absolute rock bottom. Instead of facing the pain, he tried to drown it. He numbed the resurfacing trauma with heavy drinking and completely surrendered to the very darkness he had spent his entire life running from. I really want you to think about this question for a second. How do you stop running when the pain is already inside you? It forces us to confront the ultimate trap of avoiding our trauma. You can change your job, right? You can change your friends. You can even change your country. But eventually, you run completely out of track because you are the one constant in every single escape plan. Scott had finally reached the end of the line. There was nowhere left on the map to go.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Finding True Peace.
This is it, the pivotal moment where Scott makes the absolute hardest choice of his life. He stops running and he starts healing. He scraped together whatever money he had left and opened a small Thai restaurant. But as that familiar pressure and fear started creeping back in, he realized history was about to repeat itself again. This was the turning point. Instead of running, he saw a social media post from an old friend about a program called Conscious Systems, and he actually reached out. A single confidential conversation with this friend allowed Scott to finally open the door on his past. It's such a powerful reminder that in our darkest moments, asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's an act of immense, life-saving bravery. For 50 long years, he had kept the abuse, the fear, and the shame locked inside this tight vault in his mind. But as he puts it, I had finally said the words out loud, and for the first time I realized I didn't have to carry them alone. Now, releasing the secrets that controlled him didn't magically erase his past. Those things still happened. But speaking them out loud, it instantly removed the suffocating power those memories held over him. He realized that the heaviest burden in the world is the one we stubbornly refuse to let anyone else help us carry. And the healing wasn't just one magic conversation either. It became a highly practical daily commitment. Scott shifted from dealing with abstract emotional pain to the grounded, gritty reality of a morning routine. 10 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of physical exercise, a cold shower. I mean, it sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But these small, deeply intentional steps are exactly how you rebuild a shattered foundation. It's about choosing yourself every single morning, proving to your mind and your body that you are worth the effort, day after day. Through this whole process, Scott arrived at a pretty profound redefinition of a concept he'd been chasing his entire life: home. He finally realized that the safe haven he had been so desperately searching for wasn't in Newcastle, it wasn't on the Gold Coast, and it certainly wasn't in a village in Thailand. It wasn't on a map at all. Home is where your heart finally finds peace. And that is something he had to stop searching for out there in the world and start cultivating right within himself. Which brings us to our ultimate takeaway.
So many people think healing means you somehow forget the terrible things that happened to you, or that you just pretend everything is perfectly fine now. It's really not. Healing is looking directly at the trauma, acknowledging exactly what happened, and then actively refusing to let that history decide your future. Your history might have unfairly shaped your starting line, but it absolutely does not have to dictate your destination.
So I want to leave you with this. No matter how broken things might feel right now, no matter how many miles you've run in the wrong direction, or how many mistakes you feel you've made along the way, your story is not over. What will your next chapter be?